Okay, welcome to this session of the 2025 Northwest Interlibrary Loan and Resource Sharing Conference. Today's date is September 10th, 2025. This session is titled Lightning's Live, I Have a Vision, which consists of two lightning presentations presented by Christine Shearman, Interlibrary Loan Coordinator at Rivier University, and Shelby Schroyer, Resource Sharing Coordinator at Lehigh University. My name is Melissa Perez, and I am the convener for this session. Please let us know if you can't hear or can't see us in the shared screen. This session is being recorded with the permission from the presenters. We plan to make these recordings available once the captions have been added. Expect an email from Hoover when the recordings have been posted about 3 weeks after the conference. We will take questions at the end of the session from the room and from virtual attendees on Hoover. Our virtual colleagues should post questions on the Hoover Q&A tab, and don't forget to upvote your favorites. After the session, please complete the survey to enter our prize drawing, which is open to all attendees. If anyone in the room is logged into Hoover, please remember not to start this presentation on your device. And now I will turn the session over to our presenters.
Hey, hi everyone. I think I'm going first. I'm just gonna share my screen. All right. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. All right. So okay. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Christine Shearman. I'm the Interlibrary Loan Coordinator at the Regina Library at Rivier University in Nashua, New Hampshire. We are HF9 in OCLC and NHU RIV in Docline. I've been here at the Regina Library for 9 years. I was the Cataloging and Technical Services Librarian from 2016 to 2021. And I have held this ILL role since 2021. And my lightning talk today is titled Charting Collaboration, Sharing ILL Data Using Google Maps.
Hey, Christine, we're seeing your view with the notes instead of the presentation view. Unless you don't mind that.
Well, you probably don't want to see that. So let's see. I apologize. I do not have a lot of experience with doing this.
It's all right. We've had lots of technical mistakes on our side.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind seeing my notes, I guess, then that's fine. It's
okay.
Pretty much.
We're okay with that if you're okay with that.
All right. Cool. All right. So why visualize ILL this way? As resource sharing professionals, we know the value of ILL, right? But how do we effectively communicate that to our patrons? While our library webpage explains it and our reference librarians promote it both at the desk and during instruction sessions, sometimes painting a picture is more effective, right? We will often say to our patrons, when we don't own or have access to materials, we can borrow and lend from other libraries. But what does that actually look like? So I wanted to create a visually engaging and fun way to represent interlibrary loan and personalize the ILL experience. So as I said, before I became the ILL coordinator, I was the cataloger here for years. I also regularly assisted with ILL. And one of the many things that drew me to this role when it became available was the idea of a global library community, that libraries around the world are sharing materials and our patrons literally have the world at their fingertips. A random fact about me is I love maps. And in my first week as ILL coordinator, I found a discarded United States map poster and I hung it on my office wall. It's still there. And I added a pin whenever we borrowed to or lent from a new library. Realistically, I really only added a pin when I thought of it and had time and noticed that it was a library we hadn't done business with before. So it was fun, but it wasn't an exact science. And also, my office is on the second floor and kind of tucked away. I often refer to myself as a Keebler elf. So not a lot of people saw it. I had a very limited audience. People thought it was neat when they did see it, but there weren't very many people who did. I was inspired to share a more accurate and accessible version of my wall map after attending Rosie Everson's NWILL 2024 presentation, Visualizing ILL Data for Patron Education. And one part of her talk showed how she used OCLC's canned usage reports to create a very simple map showing library relationships at the state level. I loved that concept. I wanted to take it a step further, create a more detailed and dynamic map that highlights individual libraries and emphasizes and personalizes our borrowing and lending relationships. It just seemed like a fun and a visually appealing addition to our ILL pages. To do this, I knew I needed a smooth process that works across our 2 ILL platforms. So this is an overview of my process. I gathered all the key information that I decided upon, which was library name, state or province, country, and latitude and longitude. I drew it from our 2 ILL platforms. The data sources were Tapasa and Docline. I combined and standardized the data into one Excel spreadsheet, convert the format of the spreadsheet to a CSV file, which I can then upload to Google Maps for visualization. So since most of our requests live in OCLC, I started by creating the queries in OCLC Analytics. While Tapasa's canned usage reports do provide basic data like library name and state, I realized that Analytics would allow me to provide more detail regarding the library location. I created 2 queries, one for borrowing, one for lending, and the one that you see here is the one for borrowing. The key fields are institution name, state, country, and latitude and longitude. I save these queries in our personal folder in Analytics, and I run them each month. So each month, once the stats are available, I run both queries, and I export the data to Excel spreadsheets. I save the initial ones as the masters, one for each, borrowing and lending. And each time I run statistics, I just build on the master spreadsheet by adding the most recent data. So I also have to gather the same data from Docline. And for reference, we are net lenders in Docline. We very seldom borrow from them, and our volume there is significantly lower than in OCLC. The statistics that I need are available quarterly in the library detail report. So each quarter I run that report and download that to Excel. And it looks a bit different. So I have to filter the headers. I remove the state totals and any 0 filled entries. I search each library by code in Docline to get the name and the location of the library. And then I add that data to the master Excel spreadsheet, thus combining it with the OCLC data. The next step is the data cleanup and preparation in Excel. This is the most important step, and it's time-consuming, particularly at the beginning. For each spreadsheet, I start by sorting the library by name. I double-check the state, region, and country. I edit the OCLC off-system libraries to add the accurate details because when those get downloaded, the library name is off-system, so I have to edit those. I look up the coordinates for the off-system libraries and the Docline libraries. And again, the volume for these is manageable, so that's not overwhelming. I remove the duplicate libraries so that each library is listed only once. And I save the clean file as a CSV for easy upload to Google Maps. And what you see on the screen is exactly what it looks like, both for lending and for borrowing. So next, I created the Google map with a clear title and an explanation of what viewers are seeing. And you can create layers in Google Maps. So mine has 3 layers, one for borrowing, one for lending, and then just our own library for fun. For the borrowing and the lending layers, I import the CSV file and I set the fields to display the library name, the city, and the state. Regarding the style, I experimented with a few different ways of displaying each library's data. I settled on blue for borrowing, red for lending, a book icon, and it will display individual library names and coordinates whenever a user clicks on an individual library on the map. So in the final product, users can use the legend to view all borrowing and lending libraries in list form and browse them. They can zoom in and out on the map to explore the scope of our ILL network, and they can click on an individual library icon to see that library's details. We display this map on our library's main ILL page, and we've also embedded it in our ILL LibGuide on our library's LibGuides page. So tips and lessons learned. The first one may be obvious advice, but for me, it was not. Do most of your work in Excel, because the first few months I did this, I gathered cumulative year-to-date ILL data for both OCLC and Docline, and I realized very quickly that I was just reinventing the wheel each time. Cleanup was much harder. It was much easier, I found, to just update the existing spreadsheet with new data. And deleting duplicates is much easier than relooking up the same library names and coordinates. Create map layers based on your goals. As I said, I was focused on showing the scope and emphasizing relationships. So borrowing and lending was what made sense for our library, but depending on your audience, your library, you might want to show layers of different types of libraries, for example, like academic and public, or most requested subjects, or something else. And lastly, double check coordinates and locations, because it just takes one misplaced minus sign to move a library from the Midwestern United States to Asia. And that's my talk. Thank you very much for attending my lightning round. If you have any questions, I am happy to talk more about the process or any other ideas. So please contact me if you would like to do that. Thank you.
Uh-oh. Did we totally counteract? No, it's like, you're good, go.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes to take questions if we have any questions. If not, we can go on to the next.
Okay.
I was just curious if you've gotten any like feedback from people outside the library, or if you've used it in any like promotional tools, or like heard from any, like directed it at anyone.
So we have gotten a few people who thought it looked neat. We put it on our Facebook page. Anybody who's gone to, again, the ILL landing page or the LibGuide has commented on it. It's been very casual feedback, but I still feel like even if 5 or 6 people have seen it, that's 5 or 6 people who probably would not have come upstairs to my office to see it.
Cool.
So.
Do you have a couple of Q&A? That, yeah, they seem to be addressed here. So, would you like me to talk?
I think I missed this. You look up the coordinates for each library yourself?
No, so not for each of them. For anything that is pulled in OCLC, in analytics, they will provide the coordinates in the query. I do have to look them up for Docline libraries because that's not available in Docline in that report. And also off-system libraries in OCLC, if you happen to use that, those are not going to be accurate. So I have to look each one of those up and figure out which library that was and Google their coordinates. The volume on those is pretty small.
Okay, we have another one from the chat. Would you be able to gauge if patron interaction increased or if there was an increase of borrowing requests and sharing graphics?
You know, that's hard to say because it really got shared over the summer and classes started a week ago and everything got very busy. I can't say, I guess I can't say for sure that our borrowing increased because of it, at least not yet. I think we've really only been doing this for a few months. So I probably would have a better handle on that in a year's time when I can compare previous years.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we can go on to Shelby.
Give me a second to remute the microphone. Thank you, tech people.
Alrighty. Are we set with the mic? It looks like it, so I'll get started. So hello all, I'm excited to be speaking here today at the Northwest Interlibrary Loan Conference, and I wanted to just take a moment to thank the organizers for this wonderful event. I've really been enjoying all of the presentations I've been to so far. As a brief introduction, my name is Shelby Schwer, and I am the Resource Sharing Coordinator at Lehigh University. Try saying that one 5 times fast, I always get stuck on it. I only have a few minutes, so I'm going to jump right in and get started here. As a whole, throughout this presentation, I'm going to be talking about the necessity for generating these interlibrary loan video guides, why we chose this specific tool of Panopto to use, what the scale of making these guides were, the physical mechanics of designing, recording, posting, and hosting, and how we plan on increasing or altering their usage in the future. So for a little bit of context, in November of 2023, Lehigh launched their long-awaited new website. It was a collaboration that was years in the making, and it prioritized combining our merged organization. We are both libraries and technology services. And so we had this one site that was more modern, intuitive, and streamlined. You can see a screenshot on the slide of what that new website looked like. In addition to this technology change, our library and technology team had worked on developing a way to remove our purchase request process from our ILLiad software. The combination of ILLiad and purchasing services created a point of confusion for our patrons, who on some occasions thought they were submitting purchase requests when they were submitting ILL requests and vice versa. These technology changes, coupled with the natural university patron turnover, meant that we wanted to create a more streamlined and directed user support system. So here you can see our old ILLiad interface. This is an account setup page. It's very utilitarian. It does not have any similar branding to the new website. You can see over here how Express Purchase is right in the middle of new requests. And so it did cause some difficulties for patrons. And this is in comparison to what our colleagues were able to generate. This is our new user interface for ILLiad, which is much more in line with our overall LTS site. And our team had spent months prior to this launch deciding, what sort of elements do we need to keep? What are some mandatory fields? What kind of FAQ should we have? And more. So throughout this whole process, our priority really became, how do we make this as user-friendly as possible for this rather substantial transition and change from the previous slide to this one. So from that mission, we decided we should make some user support guides to complement and ease the transition. So that's sort of where our project began. Our primary objective was to create something that encouraged user autonomy. We don't have 24/7 user services. We do have one space that is open for that time frame, but it does not have like a full-time ILL staff or library staff available there. So we really wanted something that, for the student at 2 a.m. working on a paper or a proposal could get access to ILLiad services or ILLiad assistance if they needed to. So we could have those at-time interventions and could meet our patrons' ILLiad processing information needs where they were. So that's a bit of the why, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the how. So the overall project was on a relatively brief timeline, and from start to finish, these were generated from the end of the spring semester until the edge of summer break. It was about the first week of August that we went live. So this quick turnaround meant that we had to get a lot done with a lot of different stakeholders who were all really invested in this project. We met internally with our department to coordinate about timeline and to get feedback. We met with external partners like our instruction and outreach team to make sure the guides aligned with their resources, because we really did want this to be a usable product for library services as a whole. As well as to see what our instruction and outreach librarians thought about certain technology resources. We met with members from our instructional technology team to talk pros and cons of Panopto and to learn ins and outs of the system. We worked with many of our technology colleagues to make ILLiad temporarily live so that we could film. And all of this was done within the context of feedback from our library leadership. So within this framework of feedback, collaboration, timelines, and invested parties, we sort of began diving in and really creating the what of this project. In the designing phases, we started by laying out our roadmaps for these materials by brainstorming user problems or barriers, interface changes, and typical user questions. From this pool of information, we altered them to make our script topics and later compiled these into our larger scripts. Our goal was to make each video around or under 3 to 5 minutes to match best practices. And in order to achieve this, we focused on dividing the videos up into learning goals at the remember level of Bloom, or that intro level. So for about a month and a half, we wrote these scripts for 6 separate ILLiad specific videos with the categories of creating an account, updating an account, general requests, alternative types of requests, checking on requests, and how to renew requests. You can see here on the slide an example of what our scripts looked like, as well as the 4 content elements we had and our overall learning goal for the video. Each goal was designated about 30 seconds, and we have a repeated intro and outro to include Interlibrary Loan next steps and contact information for our users. At the end of this writing process, we use our scripts to film quick times for our prototypes, which were routed to leadership for approval before we moved on to the next steps of filming in Panopto. It was good just to have a general vision of what we were going to do. I want to take just a quick moment to discuss our decision-making process regarding why we chose this tool. It's not meant to be an ad for this particular resource, but it was just the most moldable and flexible item that we had on hand. And it was recommended by many of our fellow library staff. So more specifically, this resource allowed for a lot of continuity and access in case of staff turnover. The folder doesn't leave if the owning staff member would leave. It has an easy manner of sharing links. There are embed codes, and it's compatible with Lehigh Course Site. So we really saw this as a breadth of access in terms of where you could find our created guides. And this flows really well into some of the accessibility features, such as closed captioning and the manipulation of our scripts. I'll talk about a little more in our next slide. An added bonus is we had the option to create the videos close to campus, so they require a Lehigh SSO authentication to view for added security concerns. This authentication also means that we got analytics in terms of the quantity of users watching the videos, for how long they watch them, and over what time span. So as a tool, it offered a lot more in value in terms of integrating and supporting our patrons at key intervention points. And so we're going to move on to a little bit of the nitty-gritty of making these. to create these videos, we recorded in QuickTime multiple rough videos. I don't know about you, but I can't always talk when I know I'm being recorded, so I hope I'm not stumbling through this too much. But you can see the raw videos to the bottom of this screen, the P1 and P2 values, which show our two .movie files, and we splice them together to create one flowing video. So this overall screenshot is just our editing page for us. So this is the video editor. You can see we took a lot of time tweaking and playing and replaying because every one of these grayed out slices is something that we removed from the final video. And we did that through using our nice little magnifying glass so that anytime we had any odd background noises, we have a really old building, and so every once in a while the heat or AC would make a lovely sound that we would need to get rid of. For navigation, we added jump points, which aligned with our key goals from our script. We did so by creating a table of contents called Smart Chapters with the same names as the goals and the timestamp in which we began talking about that specific topic. We really wanted these videos to be flexible, and we thought by creating these items, patrons wouldn't need to watch a full 3 or 5 minute video. They could jump to the specific question that they had, get the information that they needed, and then put that into action. I think this granular approach really makes the videos more palatable for users and more navigable. Other major time elements as far as construction included entering the captions and our additional materials to the user view screen, which we're going to go into next. So on the left here is the view screen. So this is what our patrons would see when they log into Panopto with the added closed captioning open. A factor which we tried to focus on was to make these more accessible. And by doing so, we really wanted to include accurate captions. They're not computer generated captions. We manually entered them all to ensure the information was correct and matched what was being said. I don't know why, but most processing software I have ever used does not like the name Iliad. So going back in, making sure all of the things that we're talking about are correct as possible. So additionally, we added these extra supports. So you can see that there's caption, color, and size manipulation, the ability to change speeds of the video, and to attach documents which could be used on a screen reader if necessary. So each of these features highlight the important accessibility checks. So you can see there's word contrast, you can change where the location of the captions are, their size, the ability to add notes if you wanted to further personalize the video, and it will all save that within your specific viewership. So within your account, on your side, on your navigation portal, you can add whatever information you wanted to about this specific video and how you wanted to use and submit your interlibrary loan requests. Something we might consider if we get these integrated into a more learning module type experience would be the ability to add checkpoints like slides or quizzes, and just add any additional items that way. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little more, but how we could grow these guides. And to sort of wrap up generation, once everything was done, we tested with some of our stakeholders before we went live. So going live in August meant that our guides were implemented in a variety of ways. Our folder exists on our Lehigh Panopto, so it is searchable and discoverable for all members of our community. We have embedded the videos in our Welcome LibGuide on our ILL pages. We have entered them as a continual resource, so subject librarians can embed them in any way that they would like throughout their specific LibGuides. We have shared them and promoted them in terms of new students. When the full Iliad update went live in the beginning of August, all of our guides went directly to our community members in a mass email blast. Personally, I send them to patrons when recommending Iliad usage, and I do believe they have saved me a good amount of time as far as answering questions. The future of these guides, I believe, are as flexible as we think our community needs them to be, and we have been reflecting throughout this time. As any library organization, there were already changes to some of our Iliad processing and processes. And so we have some content to update, and we've been doing that, which is lovely here because it will auto update as well. So my goal moving forward with these guides is to expand their awareness to more patrons. So we are currently considering avenues via courses, instructional sessions, and trainings. Lehigh runs programs for first semester students, 5x10s, and reaching out more to our community members. So I know that was a pretty fast explanation of our process, key considerations, and our generation of these items. I do briefly want to take a few moments to give credit to a former colleague who worked on this project with me, Sophie Tessier, who has since left Lehigh and is now a member of the Jenkins Law Library, who was instrumental in creating these guides and videos, as well as the many other LTS staff who had a hand in this. And at this point, please let me know if anyone has any comments or questions, and the link to the post-session survey is on the slide. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's,
Yes.
we're unmuted now if you want to ask if there's questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I do have a couple in chat. Here, I'll flip it around so you can see.
Okay, how did you decide which topics, questions to focus on for the videos?
So we compiled a list of centralized topics, things that were firstly what was changed from the old website to the new website, things like mandatory items that needed to go. So we used to require that patrons fill out almost every specific field. We no longer require that. We basically require that they fill out author, contributor, ISBN or ISSN, year of publication and title, as opposed to every single specific element that was used before. And that's not to mean that they always filled them out, but that was a change. We're trying to streamline that process. A lot of our frequently asked questions were something that we focused on. So concerning what sorts of questions that we got from patrons, the most common questions that we got from patrons. I will say it was very difficult from someone who deals with ILLiad all of the time to try to think of, well, what do people actually need to know versus what is all of the information that I know that I want to throw at everybody. So trying to boil that down to sizable chunks, and each one of those different items we use to make our script topics.
Thank you for that. We have another question from chat. Is BiblioCommons your new interface? I'm just curious, as our library is currently switching to this platform, and I'd love to follow your lead.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. Is BiblioCommons your new interface? I'm just curious, as our library is currently switching to this platform, and I'd love to follow your lead.
Unfortunately, I don't know that answer. I'm so sorry.
Any questions from the room? Oh, we have one.
And then I have one more question from here.
Great presentation. Thank you for that. I come primarily from the instruction library world, but I used to run ILL. When you did your videos, it looked like, and I don't know because I can't see the videos because they're behind SSO. When you talk about patrons filling out forms, are you directing them right to the ILLiad form, a blank form, and then saying type here? Or are you directing them like through WorldCat or through somewhere else, like a database, to look for things and then using your open URL lookup type tools? And can you talk a little bit about why you made the decisions you did?
Okay, so as far as directing users and filling out materials, so we directed them through examples. So essentially we just picked random We picked articles that we thought were representative, and we picked a specific book that we thought was representative, and vice versa through each individual type of request. And we walked them through that particular process of, this is the item that we have, this is the information that we had, and this is how we input it, and the important fields to input so they could see an example of that happening. So it was definitely more demonstrative in that fashion. As far as walking them through and or linking them out, we have a lot of different instructional videos across multiple different channels. So these LibGuides weren't necessarily LibGuide videos were not necessarily comprehensive in terms of all of the ways to potentially use ILLiad or ways to input a request. We have instruction and outreach staff who are amazing and who have created content concerning things like our Lehigh links and how to automatically generate ILLiad requests or borrowing requests using those particular fields. So we didn't necessarily do that, but other library faculty and staff have. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, we have another question from chat. From my personal experience, patrons often fumble with citations for article requests. Did you find that you received more complete citations after this project?
I think it's unfortunate timing. So sometimes I think that I feel like AI became very popular. So sometimes finding the, what do they call them? The
Hallucination citations?
Thank you, the hallucinated citations. Thank you so much. So we do get more of those. So I think it is a little tricky to do that. What I do think we have predominantly noticed is an increase in undergraduate submissions, which may or may also not be attributed to other changes that we have made at the same time, including that SSO authentication and just things that have streamlined our technology. So a lot of things changed in a very short period of time. But we do see the increases in uses. We do have that data, so we can see who is watching it when, what time throughout the semester they are particularly watching, the duration of what they are watching. So that has been helpful in trying to figure out how useful or practical these guides have been.
Thank you. Any other questions from the room? Okay, we have another one from chat then. If this has come up, how would you handle updating the Panopto guides if things change?
How we would handle them, essentially, we can refilm each individual section. We can remove one of the .move files, and once we update it in there, I believe it goes live. It's not necessarily that we have to redo every single link throughout all of our systems. Because we have made changes and they have gone live right after doing so.
Any other questions? Well, if there are no other questions, I think we can end early.
Quick announcement. Okay, end early unless you, the speakers, had more you wanted to discuss that you didn't have time for. Okay.
Lydia has an announcement.
But I just realized it's for in-person only, so I'll do it after the show.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'll just do closing remarks. So thank you everyone for attending this session. Please complete the post-session survey in Whova, which you can access from the QR code or the link in the session chat. The link is also in the session description. The NWILL Planning Committee and our presenters appreciate your feedback. If you want to continue the conversation, you can use the chat within the session or the Whova community section. Please thank our presenters.